Certainly, as a multi-generational farm, this is something that gets in your blood. You know, there is no other occupation that I would rather be a part of. I've enjoyed, for decades. My personal start began in the early 1980s. This is the 39th year that I will have planted a crop, nurtured it through harvest. And so, it certainly is true that it has become a lifestyle for you, not just an occupation. And, we very much enjoy what we do.
I grew up in northeast North Dakota on a sugar beet and potato farm. I went to school at North Dakota State University, and I got a degree in agricultural systems management and a minor in plant sciences. And then I started working in agronomy out in the countryside, selling seed, fertilizer, and chemical, and also doing crop scouting for farmers and providing information to them. Later on, I would go back to NDSU and get a master's degree in soil science. So soils is my favorite part of agronomy. I think there's life that comes from the soil, and taking care of that is just critically important for the future of agriculture. And so I try to do the best I can for all of my clients and my own farming information and for my own farm to make sure that we are doing the best that we can to produce the best crop today, but also keeping in mind that we need to do this for generations to come, and we're going to have more mouths to feed into the future. Right here in North Dakota, where we're standing in the Red River Valley, we have a very unique soil. It's a very high clay content soil, often called a Fargo or a Hegney clay. It's very sticky, and when it gets wet, it sticks to everything and binds up. You can ribbon it for make a very long ribbon out of that soil. It has a very high water holding capacity. It's a very rich, deep soil, and it's got a lot of organic matter to it. So it's a very dynamic soil. It's a very challenging soil to make a good seed bed out of it because it's got such a high clay content. But at the same time, it's a very crops love growing in it once they're planted and established because it's got so much organic matter. We're very fortunate to have that opportunity to farm this soil.
We've planted the seed in the ground. The first steps will be to look and watch for good emergence of that seed. To establish a good stand count is critical for high yield, great quality. We'll look for pests that might, come and interfere with production. We'll look for insects, or we'll look for weeds that may need to be taken care of. And as the season grows, we'll watch for those things, and try and prevent those things that would take away from production during the growing season. Come fall, typically in the month of September, we'll see our soybeans start to dry down. They'll start dropping leaves, they'll mature, the plants will mature, and at a point in late September, those plants will typically become mature enough to harvest. That is when we will start with our harvesters. We'll enter the field, combine, and typically from that combine hopper, it will be loaded, it will go onto trucks, and from there it will either go direct for shipment at a nearby shuttle loader or to a processing plant, or it might be put in on-farm storage for later delivery. Typically, we don't have to worry about moisture at harvest time because, if anything, the moisture is, quite dry during harvest. If it is a little tough, we have air systems on our bins, and we will adjust the moisture levels on that soybean so that it can maintain its integrity for a period of many months. Of course, we also have the good fortune of living in a northern climate, so that if we are storing over the winter months, it's like putting your food in the refrigerator. We kind of keep it very well up here. There's never been an issue of maintaining quality for the soybeans that we grow here on the farm.
So for us, most of our soybeans here will go to the Pacific Northwest, the PNW. And our farm, as it sits, is less than a mile away from a shuttle loader. So generally, in the fall of the year, what we have historically done on this farm is combine our beans and our soybeans and deliver them directly to that shuttle loading facility, where they're then directly loaded onto a train and sent out to the Pacific Northwest.
So usually most of the soybeans will come in during harvest from the farmer, and we'll store them here in a more controlled space. Most of the beans will come at harvest. We'll inspect them, we'll store them, and then we'll usually move most of the beans between November and March. And that's usually our marketing year for beans. We'll also have a small June-July program. So we run shuttles between our facilities in the country and the PNW market. And so the shuttle trains are 110 cars, about 4,000 bushels a car. And so we'll usually load 420,000 bushels on a shuttle train. And it'll take about 4 days to move that train from here in North Dakota to the vessel loading facility in the PNW. It's very important to us to bring our best product to market, very important. So here in this facility and on farmers' storage bins at home, you know, we've invested in cleaning systems, we've invested in a lot of money into bin fans and bins to keep that grain in the best quality that it can be. Controlling the temperature of the grain is probably the most important thing, especially in a year like last year where we did have to store soybeans longer than we typically would. And so we have temperature cables. So in this bin behind me, it's a 1,000,000 bushel bin, and we have 72 temperature cables that run from the top of the bin down to the bottom. And so we keep records of the temperature in the bin to make sure that there's no fluctuations. If we do see something that looks like it might go out of quality because of heat, you know, we immediately move that or segregate that grain so that we don't contaminate the rest of our grain. It's very important for the quality of the bean, especially when you look at us loading a shuttle. It takes us about 15 hours to load a shuttle, then immediately the BN pulls that shuttle and takes it to the vessel. And so it's only on a train car for, like I said, 3 or 4 days typically. And so the efficiency that we can move things and the quality advantages in that are huge.
One of the really pronounced developments within the soybean industry over the last 15 to 20 years in particular has been this growth of production in some of the western part of the soybean and the corn belt states like North Dakota, South Dakota, western Minnesota. And all of this production has really been precipitated by this dramatic growth in demand from Asian countries, most notably China. And so what that's positioned us to do is that it's resulted in the Pacific Northwest now being the second leading launching point for soybeans on the international marketplace. Currently 23% of soybean exports leave from export terminals in the Pacific Northwest region. So it really has allowed us to better access some of these very important and growing markets in Asia. And so with that increased demand, there has been a need to have a more robust, more well-maintained and capitalized infrastructure that can connect those growth areas with export regions in the Pacific Northwest. There were some significant investments that have been made over the last 15 years. Grain elevators and cooperatives have made significant investments in their ability to receive, load, and launch larger rail configurations improving the economics of our shipping. The railroads have invested millions and billions of dollars with new track and locomotive power to be able to connect those growth areas to the Pacific Northwest. Our export terminals have increased their own capacity, in some cases a new export facility to be able to accommodate that growth in demand. And then also, things like the Columbia River, being able to deepen that river between Oregon and Washington State, where so many of our soybean and grain export terminals are located, going from 40 feet to 43 feet. That allows larger ships to access that channel, to be able to load those ships with more revenue producing freight, including soybeans, better positioning us to compete in the international marketplace.
The infrastructure and why AGP is investing more is due to the sheer demand and population based. And as people get more income, they go to more of a Western or a protein diet. We focus heavily on Southeast Asia because we've seen a rapid growth in protein demand in the market. If you go back to 2000, Southeast Asian countries imported about 5 million tons of soybean meal. In 2019, it's expected that their imports are going to be 17 million tons of soybean meal. So we focused heavily on what we can do, being the Western crushers in the United States, of getting our product over to that market. One of the advantages that AGP has is our location and proximity to Southeast Asia. It takes us 4 days to load a boat and 21 days to ship it overseas. If you add all that time up, you're talking somewhere between 35 to 40 days. That's alone the transit time from Argentina to that market. AGP takes great pride in our facilities and what we send overseas, and I'm really proud when I can get out here to Grays Harbor and look at our facility here and how clean it is and how good the product looks as it goes onto the vessel.
We have the unique ability here to grow in these northern climates to grow a quality soybean. We harvest them dry. They come off the field dry, and so they're in condition right away off the field and ready for transport. We have the unique ability to grow soybeans in these northern climates that are especially high in essential amino acids. They typically grow better energy levels. We have energy levels from higher sucrose levels in our soybeans. That all means something of special importance to the end user, especially those that are developing feed rations for their livestock.
Soy grown in the cooler region, which is North America, compares favorably well than, say, soy grown in Argentina and parts of Brazil because of the weather. So soybean being a bean, beans tend to respond to environmental changes. I mean, you can grow soya this year and you will get maybe 36% protein. Next year you could get 32%. And it's not only soybean, it applies to all beans in general. So it's extremely difficult to sort of have regional differences in terms of the weather. Luckily, our weather here seems to stay more normal. When I say normal, it doesn't vary that much compared to, say, South America, where we have high temperatures, high humidities that tend to influence what type of nutrients are being deposited in the pods. So it makes the North American soybean more favorable in terms of the nutrients within the soybean compared to the nutrients from the other competitors. One of the courses that I teach is actually protein metabolism to graduate students. And normally when we talk about protein, protein is a general term for the nitrogen compounds in feed. Protein per se is not that important. What is important is what constitutes the protein, which is the amino acids. The protein quality is not good, which means that as imbalanced amino acid, the body doesn't store nitrogen. It has to get rid of it through urine. To do that, it needs energy. So the quality of protein is extremely important. And the quality is dictated by the balance of the amino acids. And so when we talk about protein, now we want to really think about the amino acids rather than protein.
We have a very close relationship with all the growers in the area. Our customers, we're spreading for them, we're scouting for them, we're looking at their fields all year, and then we work with them on grain marketing throughout the year. So it's very important to have that connection between both the grower and the exporter, where we can time delivery of the grain with the trains and it gets on the vessel in the right order, and everything moves very, very efficiently.
Well, me personally, I grew up on a farm in Iowa, and we raised soybeans and corn. And I went to Iowa State in production agriculture. So everything I do is back to what I grew up and what I loved as a child growing up. It brings, great joy and pride in what we do every day as a company.
For agriculture and for the soybean farmer to be competitive and to be profitable, it's not just a function of producing a crop, concerning yourself with supply. And it's not just a function of increasing or developing demand for those soybeans. You also have to have connectivity between supply and demand. And that's what our multimodal transportation system does. We're not the only country in the world that can produce soybeans. We like to think that we're the best in the world at producing high quality soybeans, but there are other countries that can do that as well. But what really has distinguished the US soybean industry is our ability to cost effectively and reliably transport those soybeans to customers both domestically, but particularly all around the world, to our international customers. That has been one of the secrets to our success. We think that's going to be the secret to our success moving forward.
There's a lot of mouths to feed in this world. We want to provide them with a safe, nutritious, and affordable product that everyone has access to. And at the same time, we want to make sure that this farming operation is viable into the future and that the land and water is better than we got it.
US soy, no one does it better. No one takes more care, more pride in the crop that they grow to deliver a consistent, abundant, affordable, nutritious product than US soy wheat farmers.